Hey guys, tonight we drift through something so ancient it predates time, tea, and TikTok. Yes, even TikTok. We're sliding into the void wrapped in nothingness, where silence has no beginning and shadows haven't yet been invented. Imagine trying to stand on a floor that doesn't exist. There's no light, no sky, not even a solid you. Just a sort of eternal exhale chaos. You're not floating or falling, you're just there. And in this strange cosmic soup, the first beings bubble up. Not gods in togas just yet. More like raw ideas. Chaos is first literally the absence of order. Think of it like your room on a Monday morning, but with slightly more metaphysical dread. Then comes Gaia Earth herself without needing a birth certificate. You feel ground forming under your feet, not built, but becoming. There's a warmth to her, a heartbeat even. She doesn't speak, but you somehow understand she's ready to host everything. Close behind Tartarus coils underneath a yawning abyss where things that should never be known quietly scream into the dark. You don't linger, don't. Eros, the force of attraction, swirls past like a flirtatious breeze. Not a toddler with wings, yet just the raw, cosmic magnetism that makes particles say, "Hey, want to be a molecule?" Historians still argue whether Eros was truly a primordial being or just a concept the Greeks retrofitted into a god. Either way, you feel things start sticking together. The universe clicks softly into motion. From Gaia emerges Uranus, the sky stretching high above. Their connection isn't subtle, it's creation on a cosmic scale. Stars blink into place. Mountains rise. Oceans collect like pooling ink. But all is not dreamy harmony. Uranus, fearing the strength of his own children, giants, one-eyed cyclopes, and the Hecatoncheires, those charming hundred-handed nightmares, shoves them deep into Gaia's belly, because ancient parenting was complicated. You feel her pain. It's not just emotional, it's tectonic. She shifts, plots, whispers. Enter Cronus, a titan, and the kind of son who responds to generational trauma by weaponizing it. With a sickle carved from flint, Cronus ambushes Uranus. There's no epic soundtrack, just a sharp moment and an echoing sky scream. You probably won't survive this if you blink too slowly. And here's your cheeky reality check. You're barely 30 seconds into existence, and the sky's already been castrated. Welcome to Greek mythology. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where in the world we're drifting off from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. From Uranus's, let's say, final contribution rises Aphrodite in one version of the myth. Not from Seafoam alone, but from divine leftovers. That's right. The goddess of love possibly comes from celestial afterbirth. Elegant, huh? But back to Cronus. He now rules the universe with his Titan siblings. Golden Age, they call it. Crops grow, birds sing, and nobody's invented taxes yet. Still, Cronus can't shake a prophecy. His own children will overthrow him, just like he did to dear old dad. So when Rhea, his wife, gives birth, Cronus swallows each newborn whole. Not maliciously, just, preventive maintenance. Here's your historical fact. This myth reflects real anxieties in ancient Greek society. Fear of rebellion, generational shifts in power, and cycles of violence. It wasn't just bedtime storytelling. It was cultural psychology in action. By the time baby Zeus is born, Rhea's had enough of playing baby buffet. She hides him in a cave on the island of Crete, swapping him with a swaddled rock. Cronus gulps it down without even checking. Classic. In the cave, you can almost hear infant Zeus cooing, as warriors called curetes dance and clash their shields to muffle his cries. It's oddly rhythmic, almost like ancient dubstep. The cave glows with goat milk candlelight from Amalthea, the divine goat who suckles Zeus. No, really. There's a goat nursemaid. You can't make this up. The rock Cronus swallowed still worshipped in some versions. The Greeks were nothing if not thorough in their weird reverence. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some fringe theories link the Titanomachy, the great war between Titans and Olympians, to real seismic shifts in Greek history, possibly symbolizing early Greek tribes overtaking older civilizations. Not proven, but it adds spice to your myth salad. Years pass. Zeus grows up with a six-pack and a vengeance. He frees his siblings via emetic cocktail or straight-up ambush, depending on the version, and together they launch war on the Titans. It's not a weekend skirmish, it lasts 10 years. You can almost smell the scorched mythological landscape, taste the ash in your throat, as gods hurl lightning mountains and each other. Historians still argue whether this myth influenced later tales of divine rebellion, like Lucifer's fall in Christian lore or the Norse battle of Ragnarok. The parallels are eerie. Eventually, Zeus wins. The Titans are either locked away in Tartarus or assigned bizarre eternal chores. One poor soul, Atlas, gets to hold up the sky forever. Hope he never sneezes. Zeus, now supreme ruler, doesn't throw a coronation. He just sits. On a throne of polished cloud, thunderbolt crackling casually in hand. His brothers get kingdoms too. Poseidon rules the seas, and Hades the underworld. Earth, well, they share. Mostly. With mood swings. You pause, standing at the edge of Mount Olympus, wind curling around your ears. The air up here is thin, sharp, and divine. You don't belong, but neither did they at first. From chaos to cosmos, you've watched the gods crawl out of void and vengeance. And guess what? We're just getting started. You don't have time to unpack your heavenly suitcase because the moment Zeus takes the throne, Olympus gets complicated. Not that it was ever simple, but now the family drama is gourmet. You trudge quietly across the gleaming halls of Olympus, where marble whispers secrets and golden pillars hum with tension. The mood is celebratory, but tense like a wedding, where the bride just found out her ex is seated at table 2. Zeus, proud and radiant, settles into power like he's been rehearsing since infancy, which in fairness he kind of has. But the Titans, they're not all gone. Some hide some plot, and some get cozy in Tartarus, brooding like ancient supervillains. Cronus depends on the version. He's either imprisoned in the abyss, chopped to divine bits, or oddly, in some later stories, forgiven and released. Mythology rarely commits to a single ending, kinda like modern franchises. But let's focus on the kids, or rather Zeus's kids, because it turns out he doesn't waste much time getting familiar with the Olympian HR department. You'd think he'd take a honeymoon with Hera, his sister wife. Yes, we'll get to that, but nope. Zeus starts fathering demigods, heroes, and chaos with a variety of partners faster than you can say immortality clause. The thing is, Zeus has a, let's say, flexible approach to boundaries. One minute he's turning into a swan to woo Leda, The next, he's a golden shower, no comment visiting Danae in her bronze prison. You tiptoe through stories of seduction, disguise, and divine mischief, and can't help but notice a pattern power and desire are dangerously intertwined in Olympus. Mainstream historians often point out that these tales reflect real-world patriarchal structures. Zeus doesn't just represent a sky god, but the ultimate authority figure in a male-dominated world. His unchecked power and impulsive appetites mirror ancient views of kingship. Even the weird shape-shifting bits allegories for how power disguises itself to manipulate. But back to Hera. Oh, Hera. Regal, sharp-eyed queen of the gods and chronically suspicious. You can't really blame her. You walk past her chambers where silk drapes flutter, and a peacock eyes you with disdain. Hera's whole divine vibe is, I love you, but I'm about to smite your mistress into a puddle, which she does, often. Take poor Io, one of Zeus's many flings. When Hera starts sniffing around, Zeus panics and turns Io into a cow. A literal cow. Hera, not fooled for a second, ties the bovine up and sets Argus, a 100-eyed giant, to watch her. Later, Hermes slays Argus, earning the nickname Argus Slayer, and inventing the world's most elaborate jailbreak. Hera, in mourning for Argus, plucks his eyes and sets them in her peacock's tail. So the next time you see a peacock strut, remember its flaunting eyeball memorabilia. Sleep well. These stories might seem bonkers, but they served a function. They explained natural features, created shared cultural reference points, and more subtly set behavioral boundaries. If Hera's wrath teaches you anything, it's don't mess with divine hierarchies. And maybe don't date shapeshifters. You move now to the next layer of the family. The Olympians aren't just a squad, they're a hierarchy. Zeus sits at the top, flanked by Hera, Poseidon, and Hades. Even though Hades doesn't technically live on Olympus, he still gets family invites. Then there's Hestia, goddess of the hearth, often overlooked, but kind of essential, like the quiet aunt who actually keeps the family functional. And then the younger crew, Athena, Apollo, Artemis, Ares, Hephaestus, Hermes, and Dionysus, each with their own agenda, skills, and issues. But we'll get to them in time. Here's a quirky tidbit in some early traditions. Hades wasn't even considered an Olympian, despite being Zeus's brother. He lived in the underworld and kept to himself. Historians still argue whether his outsider status was symbolic, maybe a reflection of ancient Greeks' fear of death, or a deliberate separation between the realms of life and afterlife. Either way, Hades got ghosted by Olympus. But no one gets ghosted harder than the Titans who sided with Cronus. Zeus, ever the showman, appoints a group of immortal jailers, the Hecatoncheires, those 100-handed giants he once freed from Uranus's digestive dungeon, to guard the gates of Tartarus. Imagine being stuck in a lava pit forever while a creature with 50 heads checks your visitor badge. Meanwhile, Zeus starts organizing the cosmos. He assigns deities to oversee the oceans, the winds, the seasons. You overhear divine strategy meetings where gods argue about whether thunder should be used daily or just for dramatic flair. The mood is part corporate retreat, part celestial bake-off. Here's your historical anchor, the idea of gods ruling specific realms, sea, sky, war, harvest, mirrors, how ancient societies structured power. Each domain had a deity, just like each city-state had a leader. The divine mirrored the earthly, giving order to the chaos of life. But it wasn't all thunder and thrones. Remember Rhea, the mother of Zeus and his siblings. She fades into the background now like many maternal figures in mythology. revered but retired. In some versions, she retreats to the countryside or becomes associated with wild nature and mountain rites. The gods may rule the world, but mothers still move the roots of it. You stand now at the edge of a golden courtyard, watching sunlight flicker off divine armor. Ares is sparring with Athena, war versus strategy. Hermes zips by sandals, leaving trails of light. Dionysus is trying to teach a goat to dance. It's chaotic, ridiculous, and oddly beautiful. And you realize this isn't just mythology. It's a cosmic sitcom with divine powers and intergenerational trauma. The gods bicker, fall in love, sabotage, and sulk, not because they're perfect, but because they're us exaggerated through eternity's mirror. The sky darkens slightly. A thundercloud rolls in, not angry, just dramatic. Zeus raises an eyebrow, maybe in warning, maybe just posing. You step back, careful not to attract divine attention. One wrong look, and you might end up a constellation. You wake up sort of on a cloud. Not the puffy, soft cartoon kind. This one is jagged, buzzing, and slightly ozone-scented, like it's been electrocuted one too many times. Which makes sense because right above you, Zeus is pacing. Again. He's perfected the art of the dramatic walk. Robes flutter, lightning crackles gently in his hand beard, trimmed like he's expecting a photo shoot. Olympus watches, pretends not to care, but everyone knows Zeus is restless, and that's when things get weird. It's not easy being the king of gods. Sure, he's immortal and sparkly and throws thunderbolts with perfect aim, but also he's constantly being lobbied by mortals, nagged by other gods, and haunted by a recurring prophecy that his reign could end just like Cronus's. Maybe that's why he keeps testing the boundaries of consent and transformation. You sigh. We'll tread carefully. Zeus is best known for three things ruling the gods: breaking promises and romantic catastrophes. And his methods, well, subtlety was never his thing. You take a moment to peek into the love story of Leda, a Spartan queen. One sunny afternoon, Zeus glides down as a swan, white feathers, innocent eyes, very what me vibes. The details vary. Greek myths always give you options, but the result is the same. Leda becomes the mother of 4 children, 2 of whom hatch from eggs. That's right, eggs. Historians still argue whether this story symbolizes foreign kingship entering Sparta, or just another example of divine weirdness. You drift from Sparta to Argos, where Danae lies locked in a bronze chamber. Her father feared a prophecy that her son would kill him, classic, so he locked her up. Enter Zeus in the form of golden rain slipping through cracks, pooling into her lap. 9 months later, Perseus, slayer of Medusa and all-around monster wrangler, is born. You wonder what Danae's father thought about that rainstorm. Probably regretted not sealing the windows. These tales aren't just juicy gossip, they're cultural metaphors. Zeus isn't always meant to be romantic. Often he's raw power itself, invading the human world, reshaping destinies. His transformations into animals, storms, mist reflect nature's uncontrollable force. Thunder doesn't ask permission. It just arrives. A historical side note. Many scholars believe these myths absorbed and reinterpreted older pre-Greek fertility and storm deities. Zeus, as sky god, may be a fusion of earlier regional traditions, an accumulation of symbols rather than a single origin story. Now let's talk about Hera, because this isn't a solo performance. Hera isn't just Zeus's wife. She's queen of the gods, goddess of marriage, childbirth, and divine pettiness in the best way. You tiptoe past her temple where marble lions guard silent corridors. The scent of incense fills the air, and something tells you she knows you're here. Unlike Zeus, Hera stays consistent, fiercely loyal, deeply vengeful. She doesn't take betrayal lying down, she strategizes. One of her favorite tactics, punish the woman Zeus was involved with. Which, yeah, not great, but you realize these stories were written in societies that often saw women as pawns, not players. One of the most haunting tales, Semele, a mortal who caught Zeus's eye. Hera disguised as an old woman, because of course she did trick Semele into asking Zeus to reveal his true form. Zeus, bound by an earlier promise, appears in full divine glory, lightning aura, cosmic overload. Semele is incinerated. Poof! Mortal bodies aren't built for divine wattage, but her unborn child Dionysus, saved by Zeus, sewn into his thigh until he's ready to be born. Yes, his thigh. Just take a breath. You pass by a fresco showing this bizarre birth wine vines curling around lightning bolts. It's weirdly beautiful. Zeus's love life doesn't just involve mortals. His relationships with other gods are equally tangled. Take Metis, the titaness of wisdom. When she becomes pregnant with Athena, Zeus hears yet another prophecy. Her child will overthrow him. So what does he do? Swallows Metis whole. You blink. Yep, swallows her. Apparently this prevents the birth. Except it doesn't. Later, Zeus develops the mother of all migraines. Hephaestus, ever the craftsman, cracks open Zeus's skull with an axe, family bonding, and Athena bursts out fully grown, armored, ready for battle. No diapers, no training wheels. Quirky tidbit. This story may symbolize how wisdom Metis and strategy Athena are internalized by leadership. Some scholars even view it as a metaphor for patriarchal societies absorbing female power by owning it. Still, it's hard not to laugh when you picture a goddess springing out of a god's forehead, while everyone pretends this is perfectly normal. But for every child born of ambition or fear, others arrive through sheer divine weirdness. Hermes, god of travel, thieves, and fast talking, is born of Maya. Nymph, who lives in a cave. Zeus visits her quietly for once, and Hermes is born almost instantly. Within a day, he steals Apollo's cattle, invents the lyre, and pretends to be an innocent baby. Spoiler, he is not. You float along Olympus's back corridors and see Hermes zipping around barefoot, winged sandals flickering. He winks at you. You're pretty sure he knows your browser history. The walls of Olympus hold echoes of these chaotic family entanglements. It's not neat. It's not polite. It's a divine soap opera where everyone's immortal, armed, and extremely opinionated. You wonder how they ever get anything done. Historians still argue whether these gods were meant to be worshipped or simply explained tools for understanding nature, justice, and mortality. Some temples honored Zeus with reverence. Others offered quiet sarcasm as if the locals were saying, "Yeah, we know he's a handful." You find yourself on a terrace now looking over the mortal world. Cities rise, temples gleam, prayers drift upward. Zeus watches, occasionally nods, but mostly stays aloof unless someone breaks an oath. Then the thunderbolt comes out. He may be messy, but he's still the boss. And in this chaotic, thunderlit hierarchy, you realize something strange. For all his flaws, Zeus represents the glue. He unites sky law, fate, and yes, even family, no matter how dysfunctional. A soft breeze ruffles your hair. Somewhere behind you, lightning flickers, not angry, just bored. Time to move along. The rest of the gods are waiting. You leave Zeus behind, though not entirely. Because let's face it, his fingerprints are on everything and wander toward a cooler, quieter part of Olympus. The air thickens a little. The breeze grows salty. You taste brine in the back of your throat before you even see the sea. It's not long before you hear it, the rhythmic boom of waves below echoing up the cliffs like ancient applause. And then there he is, Poseidon, god of the seahorses and earthquakes. Also mood swings. Poseidon doesn't do subtle. He doesn't have to. His trident, always within reach, hums with tectonic possibility. One wrong look, coastal towns crumble. But give him a horse, a temple, or a decent compliment, and he might calm the storms for a week or two. You stand on the shore of his domain now, not the touristy beaches with overpriced shells, but the primordial sea, dark and endless, with creatures below you haven't evolved the courage to imagine. The sea is where Poseidon reigns, and unlike Zeus, who looks down from above, Poseidon stares up from below, daring the world to blink first. Poseidon's origin story. Well, he's a sibling of Zeus, meaning he too was swallowed by Cronus, and later regurgitated. Fun family dinner. Once the Titans were overthrown, the three brothers divvied up the universe. Zeus took the sky. Hades got the underworld, and Poseidon, third pick, got the sea. But historians still argue whether this division came from actual myth or was a later attempt to neatly organize divine domains. The truth is, Poseidon isn't just a sea god. He also controls horses, storms, and earthquakes, which suggests he may have absorbed several older deities as Greek culture expanded. He's not just one god. He's an ocean of god things. As you walk across seafoam and salt-slick rocks, you pass the Isthmus of Corinth, where Poseidon was worshipped as Earthshaker. Imagine tremors beneath your feet, not from tectonics, but divine footsteps. People used to leave offerings in caves and seaside shrines. Wine bronze tridents, sometimes carved horses. The god's temple at Sunyan, perched dramatically on a cliff, still stands like a warning sign, do not anger the sea. But here's the thing, Poseidon is also wildly insecure. He craves recognition. Remember the contest for Athens? Poseidon offered a salt spring, some versions say a horse, as a gift to the new city. Athena, meanwhile, planted an olive tree. Practical, renewable, and way less murdery. The citizens picked Athena. Poseidon, humiliated, flooded part of the city out of spite. Classic salty king behavior. In myth after myth, Poseidon's motivations often come down to one thing. Why don't they respect me more? It's both tragic and hilarious. Here's a god who can shake mountains, but he's still emotionally triggered by a plant. And don't even get him started on Odysseus. Our favorite Greek hero made the mistake of blinding Poseidon's son Polyphemus, a one-eyed cyclops with a weakness for wine and sheep theft. Poseidon's response, a decade-long vendetta that turned a 10-day boat ride into a 10-year misery tour. Every storm, every detour, every monster Poseidon's doing. Spite-powered navigation. But here's a fringe tidbit: in some older Greek regions, Poseidon may have been worshipped before Zeus even showed up. Archaeological digs suggest pre-Hellenic cultures might have seen Poseidon as a central fertility god. Earthquakes, sea surges, horsepower, all symbols of raw generative energy. He wasn't always the third-wheel brother. He may have once ruled the pantheon. Today you see him as more of a loner. Unlike Zeus, who throws parties, or Hermes, who crashes them, Poseidon sulks near reefs and talks to fish. He has a palace under the sea columns of coral floors of crushed pearl furniture sculpted from shipwrecks. Dolphins serve him. Sharks avoid him. He's got a wife, too, Aphrodite, a sea goddess who really didn't want to marry him. She fled, he chased. She fled farther, he sent a dolphin to convince her. Eventually she gave in, and the dolphin was rewarded with a constellation. You glance up, and sure enough, there's Delphinus twinkling in thanks, or possibly regret. Poseidon's children. Well, they range from heroic to horrifying. There's Theseus, Athens' pride, and Poseidon's claimed son, known for slaying the Minotaur and being kind of a jerk to Ariadne. Then there's Triton, a merman with a conch-shell trumpet who calms or riles the waves. And then brace yourself, there's Charybdis, a sea monster who swallows ocean water and spits it back out, forming whirlpools. Who's her mom? Who knows? Poseidon doesn't talk about it. One minute he's fathering sea nymphs and horse lords, the next he's producing whirlpool demons and salt geysers. His parental instincts are fluid. Yet for all his wrath and insecurity, Poseidon has a code. Sailors prayed to him before voyages. Horses were drowned in his honor, yikes, but true. And when temples crumbled in earthquakes, survivors built new ones, hoping maybe to earn his forgiveness. You can't help but admire his duality. He is creation and destruction. He gives and takes. He churns the tides that cradle ships, but he also hides leviathans beneath their keels. To worship Poseidon is to accept chaos, not fight it, but ride its currents. You linger at the edge of his realm a bit longer, the roar of the surf almost hypnotic. It's not peaceful, but it's honest. And as waves crash against the rocks with ancient rhythm, you feel the god's presence not above like Zeus, but around you, in the salt of your breath, in the sting of your skin, in the memory of every storm you've ever feared. Poseidon doesn't ask for love, just respect, or at the very least fear. The sea falls behind you, leaving your skin dewy and your ears full of waves. You climb slowly now up the mist-wrapped edge of the world. Stone steps, slick with moss, led down into darkness, and even Olympus seems to hold its breath. Welcome to Hades. No, not the bad guy from the cartoons. Hades in myth isn't Satan. He's not hellfire and pitchforks. He doesn't cackle over flames or steal puppies. He's just the guy who runs the underworld. The ancient Greek HR manager of the dead. Unloved, yes. Unfairly demonized, absolutely. The descent is quiet, save for the faint rustle of dry leaves and whispers that aren't quite wind. You notice the temperature drop. A cool draft wraps around your ankles like a curious ghost. A figure waits ahead, stoic, serious, oddly regal. That's Hades. Unlike Zeus's flashy lightning or Poseidon's seismic drama, Hades rules with stillness. He doesn't parade around Olympus. He doesn't crash mortal weddings. He minds his own shadowy business. And if he seems cold, it's because he's been given the least glamorous domain, death. But let's rewind. After the war against the Titans, the three brothers split the cosmos. Hades got the underworld not because he lost, but because someone had to take it. So he did, and he's been stuck with your grandmother's ghost ever since. Historians still argue whether ancient Greeks feared Hades or simply respected him in a deeply avoidant kind of way. They wouldn't say his name aloud. Instead, they used euphemisms like Pluton, meaning the wealthy one, referring to the treasures buried underground, Not gold necessarily, just bones, legacy, memory. You cross the river Styx not with a coin, but with a shrug. Charon's boat is slower than expected, and the ferryman mumbles something about union hours. On the other side, the landscape is grayscale, ashen fields, silent troughs, shadows drifting like half-forgotten songs. Hades's palace rises from volcanic rock. No gems, no columns, just polished obsidian. You step inside, and that's when you see Persephone. She's not what you expected. No weeping maiden, no captive princess. She's dressed in rich red robes, pomegranate beads around her wrist, a sharp gleam in her eye. She meets your gaze and nods like she knows something you don't. Probably does. The Persephone story gets told wrong a lot. Yes, Hades abducted her, not great, but some versions hint she chose to stay later. That once she tasted the underworld, she found a power she didn't have up above. As goddess of spring and queen of the dead, she embodies the great paradox, renewal through decay. Quirky tidbit. In some mystery cults, Persephone was the more central figure than Hades himself. She represented the key to the afterlife, the hinge between worlds. Hades may rule, but she holds the door. Your feet crunch softly over black sand as you explore the realm further. You pass asphodel meadows where average souls drift forever, not tortured, not rewarded, just neutral. Imagine an eternal waiting room playing lo-fi harp music. That's asphodel. Further in, you reach Elysium, the VIP lounge of the afterlife. Heroes, poets, and people with excellent reputations end up here. Warm sun, soft grass, endless peace. If you squint, you think you see Achilles lounging on a cloud, tossing olives into his mouth like popcorn. But not everyone ends up in Elysium. You turn a corner and feel heat dry, aggressive. Welcome to Tartarus. This isn't hell as you've been sold. It's more like divine prison. The Titans are chained here far beneath the earth, held by celestial locks forged by Hephaestus himself. Tantalus, who tried to feed his son to the gods, eternally thirsty water just out of reach. Sisyphus, who tricked death pushing that same rock. Still, you nod politely and keep walking. Here's a mainstream historical fact. Ancient Greeks didn't fear death the way modern horror movies portray. For many, the underworld wasn't terrifying. It was just inevitable. Hades wasn't evil. He was necessary. His role was administration, not damnation. And yet, he rarely got temples. He was rarely invited to the party. Unlike Dionysus or Artemis, people didn't pray to Hades for fun. It was more like, "Dear Hades, please don't notice me. Respectfully, a mortal." You finally reach Hades's throne room. No guards, no fanfare. Just the god himself seated beneath a canopy of roots and stone. He doesn't speak, he doesn't need to. His presence is enough. You realize something here. Hades represents finality. Not cruelty, not punishment. Just the truth that all things end. That winter comes. That every story finds a closing line. Still, he's not without emotion. He loved Persephone. He honored pacts. When Orpheus came to retrieve Eurydice, Hades actually agreed on one condition: don't look back. Orpheus, as you probably know, looked back. Couldn't resist. Eurydice vanished again. Moral of the story: never trust a musician's self-control. One last hallway leads to a quiet garden. That's right, a garden. Persephone's touch lingers here, pale flowers blooming in twilight vines growing where footsteps fall. Death, yes, but also transformation. You sit for a moment, the cool soil beneath you, and you understand Hades isn't the villain. He's the keeper of balance. Without him, life would stretch on forever, unwound and unbearable. You rise, brushing shadow dust from your knees, and offer the smallest bow. You're not asking for a favor. You're just saying thanks for the reminder that every ending makes room for something new. As you step toward the light again, you hear the softest voice behind you, maybe Persephone, maybe not. Remember, don't waste your spring. When you finally climb back into the world of the living, the air feels louder, brighter too. Colors seem oversaturated, like your eyes forgot how to process joy for a minute there. You take a long breath. It tastes like pine, like honey, like something freshly baked. And then you hear it laughter, rhythmic and heady, carried on a breeze that smells faintly of grapes and sweat. You're not hallucinating. You've just stumbled into the world of Dionysus. If you were hoping for peace and quiet after the Underworld, you took a very sharp turn. Dionysus isn't your typical god. He's late to Olympus, for one thing. He had to earn his seat, and even then the others weren't thrilled about it. A half-mortal son of Zeus, born of fire and chaos, and practically invented the concept of problematic fave. He's the god of wine theater madness and ecstasy, which is like being the patron saint of college freshmen and avant-garde directors at the same time. Your sandals crunch through fallen vine leaves. You're surrounded now not by marble but by trees wrapped in ivy drums pounding somewhere nearby. A satyr skips past you giggling. A woman in a leopard print robe offers you something from a golden cup. You politely decline. You've read enough to know that accepting drinks from Dionysus's crowd rarely ends in, and then everyone got home safely. Dionysus's origin story is a roller coaster, and historians still argue whether he was even originally a Greek god. Some say he was imported from Thrace or Asia Minor, his cult folded into the Olympian tradition after years of local worship. He doesn't fit the classic mold. He's disruptive, a little anarchic, and gloriously weird. Here's the official version. Dionysus is the son of Zeus and Semele, a mortal woman. Hera, queen of jealousy, tricked Semele into asking Zeus to reveal himself in full god form. Zeus did. She immediately combusted. Zeus salvaged the fetus and sewed it into his thigh. Yes, his thigh. Several weeks later, Dionysus was born out of his father's leg, screaming and sparkling and ready to cause generational chaos. You enter a glade now lit with glowing lanterns and echoing laughter. Maenads, his wild female followers, dance in frenzies, their hair tangled with berries, their hands gripping thirsty staffs tipped with pine cones and wrapped in ivy. There's joy here, yes, but also something unsettling. The kind of energy that turns midnight fun into morning regret. See, Dionysus isn't just party god. He's the god of losing control. The Greeks knew it. Worshipping him meant stepping outside yourself, letting go of boundaries. That's why he was also tied to theater. Ancient tragedy and comedy weren't just for fun. They were ritual catharsis meant to push people into emotional extremes and back again. Mainstream fact: the theater of Dionysus in Athens is where many of the great tragedies were performed. Sophocles, Euripides, Aeschylus. They weren't just telling stories. They were participating in religious experience. Drama wasn't entertainment. It was sacred disassembly of the human psyche. Dionysus taught that madness wasn't always a curse. Sometimes it was liberation. His rites could involve masks, music, and trance. And in his mystery cults, initiates sought transformation, not through moral discipline like with Apollo, but through surrender. And yes, there's always that tension between Dionysus and Apollo. Order versus chaos. Logic versus emotion. Historians love to frame them as opposites, but in practice they often coexisted. Many temples had paired shrines to both gods, like a spiritual yin-yang sticker. Because even the Greeks knew without a little madness, reason gets boring. And without reason, well, you end up eating your neighbor because you thought he was a wild boar. That wasn't just a metaphor. In one myth, Pentheus, king of Thebes, banned Dionysian worship. Dionysus tricked him into spying on the Maenads disguised as a woman. They went into a frenzy and, mistaking him for prey, tore him apart. His own mother helped. The story's message: don't mess with divine chaos. Or at the very least, never crash a god's party uninvited. You wander deeper and find a low fire. Around it, a few figures are whispering myths. One of them tells the tale of Ariadne abandoned by Theseus on Naxos. Dionysus found her there, heartbroken and forgotten. He didn't just rescue her, he married her, crowned her, even made her a constellation. A fringe interpretation. Some believe Ariadne was originally a goddess in her own right, absorbed into Dionysus's mythology as his consort to elevate her and perhaps him. You sip a little wine now, just a drop, and immediately feel like time has melted. Your fingers tingle. Your thoughts feel like poetry you haven't written yet. The trees sway in rhythm. Dionysus appears, reclining on a bear pelt, his eyes heavy-lidded, his voice a deep whisper that somehow fills the forest. Let it go, he says. It's not a command, it's permission, and that's his power. Dionysus doesn't demand control, he invites you to surrender it. Even so, not everyone made it back from his rituals the same. Some came back wiser, some came back babbling, some didn't come back at all. And the Greeks were okay with that. Life is short. Wine is strong. Gods are complicated. So what does Dionysus want from you? Not obedience. Not worship exactly. Just honesty. He wants you to feel something. Really feel it. Joy, grief, rage, longing. Whatever it is, let it flood through you. Because to repress is to rot. But to express, even wildly, is to transform. You stand dizzy but grounded. The firelight dances over your skin. Somewhere a flute begins to play, and you realize the forest itself is humming. Dionysus raises his goblet in your direction, either a toast or a dare, maybe both. And just like that, he's gone. The air settles, the wine fades, your heartbeat slows. You smile despite yourself. You didn't mean to have a good time, but here we are. You wake on a sun-drenched hill, skin still warm from a fire that's long since gone out. Grass whispers against your arms, and for once there's no thunder, no chants, no underworld chill. Just birdsong and the rhythmic clip of hooves on marble. You sit up slowly. A gleam of silver flashes in the distance, weaving through olive groves and pine. That's not a trick of the light. That's Artemis, goddess of the hunt, the wild, and the moon, and she's already moving fast and wordless. Artemis doesn't wait for you to catch up. She doesn't slow down for introductions. She's not here for small talk. You follow her anyway, your steps light on the forest floor, breath held as if you're trying not to spook her. See, Artemis is what happens when independence becomes divine. She swore off marriage, off the drama of Olympus, off even men in most myths. She roams the wilderness with her band of loyal nymphs, hair braided tight bow always slung across her back. If the gods were a dysfunctional high school, Artemis would be the mysterious girl who skipped prom and taught herself to track wolves instead. You hear a deer cry out, not in pain but in surprise. Artemis is already gone a blur in the underbrush, and for a moment you feel genuinely jealous. She doesn't ask for permission. She just is. Mainstream historical fact: in classical Athens, Artemis was venerated not just as huntress, but as protector of young women. Before marriage, girls would dedicate their toys to her, a symbolic farewell to childhood. Her temple at Brauron was a major pilgrimage site, where girls dressed in saffron robes and danced like bears, yes bears, in her honor. Quirky detail: one version of her origin says Artemis helped deliver her twin brother Apollo at birth, immediately after being born herself. Imagine popping out of the womb and then immediately grabbing gloves like, "All right, let's do this." That's Artemis. Efficient, unflinching. You climb higher into rocky terrain. Artemis waits for you at the edge of a cliff, eyes scanning the landscape. Her gaze is cool, but not unkind. You get the sense that she sees everything: the tiniest movement in the brush, the ripple of wind through leaves, your pulse in your neck. There's something almost uncomfortable about it, like she's reading not just your posture, but your intentions. She's not without her darker side. In myths, Artemis is fiercely protective of her spaces, her people, her animals. Violate that trust, and she doesn't hesitate. Just ask Actaeon, who stumbled upon her bathing and got turned into a stag. His own dogs tore him apart. Or Niobe, who bragged she had more kids than Leto, Artemis's mom. Artemis and Apollo answered by, well, correcting that math. Historians still argue whether Artemis was truly worshipped for her wildness, or more for the idealized virginity she represented in a patriarchal society. She's one of the few goddesses who exists entirely outside male control, and that made her both admired and feared. You trek into deeper woods now. Light flickers through leaves like the moon filtering through shutters. You notice the animals: foxes, owls, a single lynx watching silently. They don't run from her. They know she belongs. There's no temple here, no altar. Artemis doesn't need those. The woods are her sanctuary. She doesn't want praise. She wants respect and quiet. Lots of quiet. You reach a small clearing. The trees bend ever so slightly inward, forming a soft ring of shade and privacy. Artemis kneels beside a fawn with a thorn in its leg. She whispers something in a language older than Greek. The fawn holds still. You realize Artemis isn't just hunter, she's healer too. Guardian. She knows when to shoot, but also when to sit still. That's her secret balance. Most gods only offer one thing: war, love, chaos. But Artemis gives you both edge and gentleness, survival and sanctuary. She rises, wipes her hands on her tunic, and looks at you. Not through you. At you. And she asks without words, can you move through the world without conquering it? Can you walk beside nature, not over it? Can you learn to listen? You want to say yes. You really do. Because the modern world doesn't reward Artemis energy. It rewards Zeus energy: take, build, shine, speak. But there's a reason the moon still pulls tides and wolves still howl into the night. Artemis never needed applause. She needed space. She starts walking again. You follow quieter now, a bit more aware of how your footsteps press into soil. You step around a patch of wild mint instead of on it. She notices. She says nothing, but she notices. As night drapes over the forest, Artemis stops by a stream. She tilts her head, and for a moment you think she's about to speak, but instead she raises a finger to her lips and points up. The moon has risen, not as spotlight, not as stage, but as witness. You sit beside her on a fallen log, the sound of trickling water and chirping insects filling the silence. You think about all the noise you've made in your life, all the things you tried to chase. Here, nothing chases. Nothing needs to. You realize the wild isn't disorder. It's just a system that works without needing you at its center. Artemis stands. Her bow hums softly as she disappears into the trees. You don't follow this time. You stay, because for once, stillness feels like enough. You awaken to the distant sound of waves crashing against jagged cliffs. Salt tangs the air sharp and electric, and you realize you've moved from the shadowed forests of Artemis to the roaring seaside. The ocean stretches vast and endless before you, a mirror for the sky's restless moods. Here reigns Poseidon, god of the sea storms, and horses a god whose temper is as mercurial as the tides he commands. You trudge closer to the shore, toes sinking into wet sand, the chill of seawater lapping at your ankles. Poseidon's presence is unmistakable. The air hums with power, and every crashing wave feels like a shout. He is a god of immense contradiction, giver of life through water, but also bringer of shipwreck and chaos. Mainstream fact. Ancient Greeks believed Poseidon controlled not just the sea, but also earthquakes, earning him the nickname Earth Shaker. Coastal cities often built temples to him, hoping to appease his wrath and secure safe passage for their ships. You watch as a wild stallion Seafoam tangled in its mane gallops along the shoreline. Horses are sacred to Poseidon, a connection not everyone remembers. Legends say he created the first horse by striking the earth with his trident, and that explains their raw, untamed spirit. Historians still argue whether Poseidon's maritime role overshadowed his influence on horses and earthquakes, or if his worship started inland before spreading to coastal regions. This duality keeps his image complex, shifting like the sea itself. A sudden gust kicks up salty spray as you hear thunder rumbling overhead. Poseidon's mood seems to darken. You can almost feel his frustration bubbling beneath the surface, like a storm ready to break loose. The sea behind you churns violently, waves towering, as if summoned by some unseen force. Here's a quirky tidbit. Poseidon was not only tempestuous, but a notorious rival, especially with Athena. The famous myth where they compete to offer the city of Athens a gift is a classic. Athena's olive tree won over Poseidon's saltwater spring, but some versions say that spring was actually a dangerous flood threat. Talk about a power struggle with very literal stakes. You notice a carved stone submerged just beneath the waves, etched with tridents and dolphins. Fishermen have long left offerings here, hoping to curry favor or avoid Poseidon's wrath. It's a silent pact between mortals and God, a constant negotiation. You think about the sailors who ventured into the unknown on rickety ships, depending on Poseidon's goodwill to bring them home. One wrong move or offense and their voyage could end in disaster. Walking along the water's edge, you find a conch shell. It's smooth and cool in your hand, and when you hold it to your ear, the ocean roars within. A reminder that the sea carries voices from afar, secrets and stories swirling beneath its surface. Poseidon's temper may be legendary, but so is his capacity for generosity. He gifts horses and abundant fish, the lifeblood for many coastal communities. Without his grace, ancient civilizations wouldn't have thrived by the sea. You glance up as clouds part, and the sun peeks through the casting golden light on the waves. The sea calms, becoming a glassy expanse that mirrors the sky's serenity. Poseidon's moods shift as swiftly as the weather. As you turn to leave, you sense a presence beside you, a watery shadow, fading into the horizon. Poseidon doesn't always announce himself loudly. Sometimes he is the quiet pulse beneath the surface, the gentle push of a tide, or the shimmer of moonlight on the waves. You pocket the conch shell, a small token of this wild, powerful god, who reminds you that strength and unpredictability often go hand in hand. Poseidon's domain is vast and untamable, much like life itself. With one last glance at the sea, you step away from the shore, carrying the echo of waves with you as your journey continues. The scent of burning olive wood drifts through the air as you step away from the tumultuous sea and into the warm embrace of a sun-drenched olive grove. The ground here is dry and cracked beneath your feet, dust swirling lazily as you walk. You find yourself under the watchful gaze of Athena, goddess of wisdom, warfare strategy, and craft, an intriguing blend of brain and brawn wrapped in armor and bearing an olive branch. Athena's story is unique. Born fully grown and armored from the forehead of Zeus himself, she embodies intellect over brute force, a warrior who fights with her mind as much as her spear. You feel her calm presence here, the quiet confidence of someone who knows every tactic before the battle even begins. Mainstream fact. Athens, the capital city of Greece, was named in her honor after she gifted the olive tree to its people, symbolizing peace, prosperity, and endurance. That olive tree, by the way, was considered sacred, and its wood was used to craft weapons, tools, and sacred objects. A quirky detail. While Athena is known for wisdom and war, she also had a fondness for handicrafts, especially weaving. Legend says she turned a mortal woman Arachne into a spider after a weaving contest, explaining where spiders come from. Not the nicest fashion critic, is she? Historians still argue whether Athena's role was originally more focused on the martial aspects, or if her wisdom and crafts took precedence in early Greek culture. This debate colors the way different city-states worshipped her, emphasizing different traits. You wander among the olive trees, noticing how their gnarled trunks twist in shapes like ancient sculptures. The grove feels timeless, a quiet sanctuary of thought amid the noisy chaos of the gods. You imagine Athena advising warriors and rulers, her voice cool and precise. Suddenly, a gentle breeze carries the faint sound of a flute, stirring the leaves like a whispered secret. It's as if Athena herself is encouraging you to listen not just to the music, but to the lessons hidden beneath the noise. Here's a fun tidbit. In some myths, Athena also invented the flute, but refused to play it in public because it distorted her noble image. Gods have vanity too, it seems. You pause to pick up an olive and roll it between your fingers, thinking about the duality of this goddess, fierce on the battlefield, yet tender in her nurturing of civilization. She's the ultimate multitasker, guiding heroes like Odysseus, while inspiring artists and thinkers. Athena's shield. The aegis is said to bear the terrifying face of Medusa, which could turn enemies to stone. You shiver at the thought, combining wisdom, protection, and a dash of terror all in one. As you sit beneath the trees, the sun filtering through branches, you realize that Athena's true gift isn't just her knowledge, but her ability to balance power with justice and reason. It's a reminder that brains can win wars just as much as brawn. You leave the grove feeling sharper, more focused. The wisdom of Athena lingers in your mind like the lingering aroma of burning olive wood, a scent of quiet strength and enduring legacy. The warm earth beneath your feet shifts as you leave the olive grove and ascend into cooler, shadowed mountains. The air is crisp, scented with pine and the faint musky aroma of wild herbs. Here reigns Artemis, goddess of the hunt wilderness, and the moon, a figure both fierce and gentle protector of animals and young women. You feel your breath slow, syncing with the quiet rhythm of the forest. The sunlight filters softly through leaves, dappling the ground with shifting patterns, as if nature itself is breathing alongside you. Artemis watches silently, her presence both unseen and intensely felt like a whisper in the wind. Mainstream fact: Artemis was one of the most widely worshipped deities in ancient Greece, revered as a virgin goddess who fiercely protected her purity and that of her followers. Temples dedicated to her were often built in remote wilderness areas, emphasizing her bond with nature. A quirky tidbit: Artemis was known to be a bit of a prankster. Some myths say she transformed a hunter named Actaeon into a stag for accidentally seeing her bathing, only to have him torn apart by his own dogs. Talk about a harsh no photos policy. Historians still argue whether Artemis's original cult was more associated with childbirth and fertility before she became primarily known as a huntress. This debate reveals the complexity of how her worship evolved over time. You tread carefully, mindful of the delicate balance in her domain. You hear rustling in the bushes and catch a glimpse of a deer, its eyes reflecting quiet intelligence. Artemis, it seems, does not just command the wilderness, but dwells in its secrets. The moon hangs high, pale, and steady, its light casting a silver glow over the trees. Artemis's connection to the moon isn't just symbolic. It guides her hunting and marks her power over night and mystery. An unexpected detail: some cults believed Artemis could send sudden plagues or protect people from disease, showing her dual role as both a bringer of death and a healer. A goddess of paradoxes, much like the wild forest itself. You spot a silver bow leaning against a tree stump, sleek, elegant, and deadly. It reminds you that Artemis's power lies in precision, patience, and respect for the natural order rather than brute force. As you follow a narrow trail, you recall that Artemis was often accompanied by a band of loyal nymphs, free-spirited and wild themselves, embodying freedom and resistance to societal constraints. You imagine her fierce independence and quiet wisdom, a goddess who demands respect and gives protection in return. Her world is one where every creature has its place and every step matters. Before you leave, you pause to gather a handful of soft moss, cool and damp, a tangible reminder of the quiet magic thriving in shadowy places. Artemis's domain may be wild and untamed, but it is also deeply alive. You feel a calm resolve settling within you, a reminder that sometimes the fiercest strength comes from harmony with the world around you. With a final glance at the glowing moon, you step away from the forest, Artemis's silent blessing following you into the next part of your journey. The air changes again as you leave the forest behind and enter the bustling heart of a grand, ancient city. Marble columns rise around you, and the chatter of merchants, philosophers, and poets fills the streets. Here the god Apollo holds court, god of the sun, music, prophecy, and healing, a radiant figure who dazzles and commands with equal parts charm and intensity. You feel the sun's warmth on your face as if Apollo himself is shining down to illuminate your path. His presence is unmistakable, brilliant, inspiring, and just a bit intimidating. There's a golden glow about him, a reminder of daylight's power to both nurture and reveal. Mainstream fact: Apollo was worshipped across the Greek world, and his sanctuary at Delphi was famous for its oracle, where the Pythia delivered cryptic prophecies believed to come directly from the god. People from all over would travel miles seeking his guidance. A quirky tidbit: Apollo was also associated with the invention of the lyre, and some myths say he competed with the satyr Marsyas in a music contest and lost, resulting in rather gruesome consequences. Not the kind of talent show you'd want to enter. Historians still argue whether Apollo was originally a god of plague and healing before becoming primarily associated with music and prophecy. This debate highlights the shifting nature of his divine portfolio. You wander through the agora, catching fragments of lively debates and the rhythmic strumming of a lyre. The scent of incense and fresh herbs mingles in the air, hinting at both ritual and everyday life. Apollo's dual nature as healer and bringer of plague echoes the unpredictable sun, life-giving yet relentless. You glance at a statue of Apollo, youthful and poised, holding a laurel wreath, the symbol of victory and poetic excellence. It's a reminder that Apollo was the patron of the arts, as well as a fierce enforcer of order. An unexpected detail: Apollo was also associated with the sun god Helios in later myths, but originally they were distinct deities. This merging reflects the complex layers of Greek religious evolution. You imagine the Pythia sitting in her temple, entering trance states to deliver Apollo's cryptic advice. Her words shrouded in mystery, shaping the fates of kings and commoners alike. It's a heavy responsibility for a mortal channel. As you move on, the sound of a flute drifts through a nearby courtyard, playful and light, contrasting with Apollo's grandeur. You chuckle, thinking about how gods balance their fierce seriousness with moments of whimsy. Apollo's realm is one of brilliance and tension, where creativity and control walk hand in hand. You feel energized, as if the god's light has sparked a tiny fire in your own heart. Stepping into the late afternoon sun, you carry a newfound sense of inspiration and a wary respect for the unpredictable power of this radiant god. You leave the sun-soaked city behind and find yourself drawn toward the sea, where salt tang fills the air and waves crash rhythmically against rocky cliffs. Here rules Poseidon, god of the sea, earthquakes, and horses, a tempestuous deity whose moods can shift as quickly as the tides. The horizon stretches wide and wild before you, an endless blue that feels both inviting and dangerous. Poseidon's realm is a place of raw power, where storms can rise in moments, and calm seas lull sailors into a false sense of security. Mainstream fact: ancient Greeks depended heavily on the sea for trade travel and food-making. Poseidon, one of their most important gods. His temples often sat near harbors, and sailors prayed to him for safe passage. A quirky tidbit: Poseidon was also credited with creating the first horse by striking the ground with his trident. Horses, like the sea, were symbols of untamed energy and freedom. Historians still argue whether Poseidon's association with horses preceded or followed his identification as god of the sea, reflecting the complex nature of his divine persona. You stand at the edge of the cliffs, feeling the spray of salt water on your skin. The wind carries the sound of crashing waves and distant sea shanties, as if the ocean itself is singing its ancient song. You imagine Poseidon wielding his trident, stirring storms or calming waters with a flick of his wrist. His temper is legendary. He once caused a massive earthquake to punish a mortal king who offended him. Not exactly the kind of neighbor you want during a dinner party. An unexpected detail. In some myths, Poseidon was considered a god of fertility, not just of the sea connected to springs and fresh water as well. A reminder that even the wildest gods had nurturing sides. You watch a pod of dolphins leap joyfully through the waves, creatures sacred to Poseidon, and symbols of guidance and protection for sailors. It's a brief moment of peace amid his often turbulent domain. You think about the ancient sailors who faced the sea's dangers daily, placing their trust in Poseidon's favor or fearing his wrath. Their lives depended on the delicate balance between respect and supplication. As the sun dips lower, the ocean shifts from deep blue to a fiery orange, reflecting the god's fiery passion and unpredictable spirit. Poseidon's world is one of beauty and danger intertwined. You take a deep breath, savoring the briny air, and feel a surge of awe for the power hidden beneath the waves. The sea's mysteries seem endless, just like the stories of the god who rules it. With the tide pulling at your feet, you turn away, carrying the echo of crashing waves and the wild energy of Poseidon's realm with you as your journey continues. The salty breeze fades as you enter a realm of shadows and silence. The air here is cool and still heavy with a strange, almost sacred calm. This is the domain of Hades, god of the underworld, a figure cloaked in mystery and misunderstood by many. You tread lightly, aware that you've crossed into a place where the living rarely wander and where the dead reside in endless rest. Hades is not just the god of death. He rules over the unseen, the passage between worlds, and the balance between life and what comes after. Mainstream fact. Ancient Greeks believed the underworld was a complex realm with different regions, including Elysium for heroes and Tartarus for the wicked. Hades himself was often feared, but rarely worshipped directly. A quirky tidbit: despite his grim domain, Hades had a softer side. He was a devoted husband to Persephone, whose annual return to the surface marked the changing seasons. It's like the first ancient tale of work-life balance. Historians still argue whether Hades was originally a more neutral or even positive deity, before later myths painted him as a darker figure, reflecting changing cultural attitudes toward death. You feel the weight of silence pressing around you as you imagine the vast rivers Styx Acheron that souls must cross. Charon the ferryman waits patiently, his boat the only passage between life and death. An unexpected detail. Some myths suggest Hades was a god of wealth, as well called Pluton, because precious metals and fertile soil come from underground. So in a way, he was linked to life's hidden riches. You picture the gloomy palace where Hades sits, ruling with firm justice rather than cruelty. Unlike the fiery hells of later traditions, the Greek underworld is more a somber realm of rest and reflection. The cool air carries faint whispers, echoes of lives once lived and stories untold. Hades' domain is a reminder that death, while inevitable, is part of a larger cycle, one not to be feared but understood. You notice a single blooming flower in the gloom, Persephone's gift, symbolizing hope and renewal, even in the darkest places. As you prepare to leave, the quiet gravity of this place lingers. Hades' world is not about terror, but about balance between endings and beginnings, shadows and light. You step forward, carrying with you a deepened respect for the unseen forces that shape life's final journey. The chill of the underworld fades as you move toward a vibrant grove bursting with life and color. Here you find Dionysus, god of wine, revelry, madness, and ecstasy, a figure as wild and unpredictable as the grapevine he tends. The air hums with music and laughter, the scent of ripe fruit and fragrant flowers intoxicating your senses. You can almost hear the distant drum beats calling you into a dance you didn't know you wanted to join. Mainstream fact: Dionysus was unique among Greek gods for his association with both joy and chaos, and his cults often involved ecstatic rituals that broke normal social rules, allowing followers to lose themselves in divine frenzy. A quirky tidbit: his followers, the Maenads, were said to tear animals apart with their bare hands, in wild rites symbolizing a breakdown of civilization's restraints. Definitely not your typical party guests. Historians still argue whether Dionysus originated as a god of vegetation and fertility before becoming the god of wine and ritual madness, illustrating how fluid Greek religious beliefs could be. You find yourself swaying to an invisible rhythm, the line between order and chaos blurring. Dionysus embodies that sweet spot where restraint loosens and creativity and passion explode in vibrant color. You notice masks scattered among the leaves, symbols of theater and transformation, reminding you that Dionysus was also the patron of drama, inspiring countless plays that still resonate today. An unexpected detail: Dionysus was sometimes depicted as an outsider god, born from a mortal woman, and Zeus's thigh highlighting his dual nature, both divine and human order and disorder. You imagine the energy of a Dionysian festival, a space where social hierarchies dissolve and everyone shares in the ecstatic experience. It's wild, messy, but strangely liberating. A thought crosses your mind: maybe everyone needs a little Dionysus in their life, a break from the rules, a night of freedom and joy. Just maybe avoid the Maenads. As the grove's sounds fade into the twilight, you feel a lingering thrill, a reminder that life's richest moments often come when we dare to let go. You take a deep breath, savoring the last notes of the music, before stepping forward into the calm that follows the storm of celebration. You find yourself walking into a serene space where light and wisdom intertwine softly. This is the realm of Athena, goddess of wisdom, strategy, and crafts. Her presence is calm yet commanding, like the steady hand guiding a ship through turbulent waters. The air carries the faint scent of olive trees, symbols of peace and prosperity she famously gifted to Athens. You feel a quiet strength here, the kind born not from brute force but from sharp intellect and careful planning. Mainstream fact: Athena was one of the most revered Olympian deities, known for her role in guiding heroes like Odysseus and Perseus, as well as for founding the city of Athens, which bears her name. A quirky tidbit: she sprang fully grown and armored from Zeus's forehead, a dramatic birth story that's basically the ancient version of walked out of a meeting ready to conquer the day. Historians still argue whether Athena's attributes were originally separate deities, merged into one figure over time, showing how complex and layered Greek mythology can be. You admire the intricacy of a finely woven tapestry, depicting the exploits of heroes and gods, each thread telling a story of courage, wisdom, and resilience. Athena's domain is where strategy meets creativity, where knowledge empowers action. You recall how she valued justice and fairness, often intervening to balance power and encourage clever solutions over violence. It's a reminder that brains can outmatch brawn even in a world of gods and monsters. An unexpected detail: Athena was also associated with the peaceful arts of weaving and pottery, contrasting with her fierce warrior side. It's like she's saying, "I can fight or craft, take your pick." You imagine her perched on the Acropolis, watching over Athens, proud of the city's achievements, but always ready to challenge complacency. As you prepare to leave her realm, you carry with you a renewed sense of purpose and clarity, knowing that wisdom and courage go hand in hand. The journey through the Greek gods has brought you from the heights of Olympus to the depths of the underworld, from the storms of the sea to the celebrations of the vine. Each god reflects a facet of life power and the human experience. Now, as you slowly step away from this divine tapestry, you feel a calm settling in like the closing notes of a timeless song. Word count 1088, awaiting wind-down command or further instructions. Now, as your eyes grow heavy and the world around you softens, let your breath deepen and slow. Imagine the gentle rustle of olive leaves in a warm evening breeze, the quiet echo of waves against distant shores, and the soft flicker of twilight stars just beginning to appear. The stories of gods and mortals fade gently into the background, like a lullaby woven from ancient whispers and timeless truths. Feel the calm embrace of night wrapping around you, carrying away worries and restless thoughts. There's no rush here, no need to grasp at understanding, just the peaceful knowing that every tale, every legend is a thread in the vast tapestry of human wonder and imagination. Let yourself drift on this slow current where wisdom and mystery blend seamlessly. In this quiet moment, remember that even the gods needed rest, and so do you. Close your eyes if you wish, and imagine a soft silver moonlight bathing your skin, soothing and serene. You are safe, you are still, and you are exactly where you need to be. Let the gentle hum of the night guide you toward dreams filled with stars, stories, and endless possibilities. Good night, and may your journey continue in the sweetest of dreams. End of script. Sweet dreams.